So yeah, it's been a while. Some of you who have been subscribed to this channel may be wondering why I have decided to return to making content, while some non-subscribers might be introduced to this channel for the first time through this video. I'll explain some of my reasons for making content here, as well as some of my best and worst experiences outside of YouTube, and I'll do my best to make it short. On October 12th, 2021, I uploaded a now seemingly poorly aged video titled The Current State of This Channel, where I had indicated my channel's lack of recognition in terms of views in the algorithm and little to no support. I also openly stated that this will be the final video on the channel, and the channel had gone inactive for a full 2 years after I announced that I was officially done. You may be asking, what does all this have to do with anything? Well, as I alluded in the previous video, I have begun reading the IDW Sonic the Hedgehog comics, as I bought the first graphic novel and I loved all 4 issues. Since last year, I decided to start collecting each and every IDW Sonic graphic novel that I currently own so far, and man oh man, I was so blown away at the way the characters were written, how epic the action scenes are, the new characters, and its intriguing storyline and arcs. I've spoken my thoughts about it on Twitter a couple of times about how great it is, and I've even talked to a few people about how great it is as well. This is when I had a change of heart and got the idea to do a comic review series on it, to give my entire vocal thoughts on it, and no better way to do it on the 8-year anniversary of my YouTube channel. So with that being said, welcome to my brand new comic review series where I cover each and every issue of the IDW Sonic series.
Waking up, breaking out. This is what it's like to be free. Rip it up, tear it down. This is what it means to be free. Waking up, breaking out. This is what it's like to be free. Rip it up, tear it down. This is what it means to be free. One step to cornerstone inside you.
On July 19th, 2017, the official Sonic Twitter account announced that Saga will be ending their partnership with Archie Comics, who had published the previous Sonic comic series. The Archie Sonic series was a vastly popular comic series that started in late 1992 as an initial 4-issue miniseries, then eventually became a full-on comic book series. It ran for 24 years with nearly 300 issues, becoming the longest video game-based comic series to date. During its lifespan, it spawned 2 notable spin-offs, which are the Knuckles comic series and Sonic Universe, which I previously reviewed, and as well as 2 comic series based on the Sonic TV shows, those being Sonic X and Sonic Boom. While the main series ended with its 290th issue in December 2016, the final Archie Sonic issue to ever be published from the company is Sonic Universe issue 94, which was released in January 2017. Crazy to think how they ended it with the Chaotix's own story arc. Wow. 2 days after the announcement of the cancellation of the Archie comics, the official Sonic Twitter account confirmed that Sega will be collaborating with another comic book company, IDW, which stands for Idea and Design Works, to create a brand new Sonic comic series to be the true successor of the previous series. This company is well known for producing comic series of some iconic franchises such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and My Little Pony, and it's currently the 5th largest comic book publisher behind Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and Image Comics. I wasn't aware of this company until I saw news from a couple of YouTube videos and other various sources. So saying that a new company like this is making a new Sonic comic series sounded really cool, and I was curious to see what they would do with Sonic going forward, and of course, I was really excited. During the New York Comic Con in 2017, there were a few revelations about this new comic series through flyers, which promised new stories that would feature characters old and new, as well as the first few issues being scheduled to release in April 2018 as part of a 4-week-long event. It was confirmed that a former Archie Sonic writer, Ian Flynn, and a returning Archie Sonic artist, Tracy Yardley, will be taking part in this series as well. And finally, on April 4th, 2018, the first issue of IDW Sonic was released. For these reviews, I will be talking about the cover before analyzing the story. I am well aware that there are multiple different covers designated to a single issue, so I'll talk about the variant covers near the end of these reviews. The main cover for this issue is amazing. It depicts Sonic doing basic Sonic things, as usual with Tails flying next to him. A few flickies are shown, one of which that happens to be blocking part of the title, and there's a Coconuts bandit from Sonic 2 as well. This was all drawn by the legend Tyson Hess, who is the animator for Sonic Mania's opening cinematic and redesigned movie Sonic in the live-action Paramount films. I will tell you, the first time I saw this cover, I instantly recognized the art style. This man seriously never misses with his style. The issue opens up with a brief narration of Sonic's past battles with his arch-nemesis, Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik, as it recounts the events of him fighting the Doctor's previous contraptions, such as the Egg Viper from Sonic Adventure, the Egg Emperor from Sonic Heroes, even though that was secretly Metal Sonic in disguise, the Egg Dragoon from Sonic Unleashed, and the Death Egg robot from Sonic Forces. After their recent battle, Eggman presumably vanished, but his robot army is still around and it's up to the Bluebird to put a stop to them. We cut to the present day as Sonic comes across Vista View, which is being attacked by some badniks, and he rushes into the action to save the village. Love the way he's drawn in this panel, by the way, he looks so good. We see an NPC try to fight an egg pawn with a cube wisp on, but is apparently a wuss and easily gets knocked down. Thankfully, Sonic comes to the rescue just in time to take the robot out. He helps up the NPC and tells him to try swinging at the robots next time, as he knew somebody who had a better usage of it. Yeah, that's somebody. He quickly takes off to another area to find more residents to save, while telling the other NPCs that there are bots approaching from the north and need to help the other NPC he just saved. He then takes out a group of motobugs attacking the citizens, not before winking and striking a cool pose, and takes off again. Also, I don't know why, but this line is really relatable to me for some reason. Suddenly another badnik appears, which happens to be an Egg Hammer from Sonic Heroes. You know, the biggest and strongest enemy in that game that can easily be one-shotted with the light speed attack. Sonic manages to push it back a little with a spin attack, then taunts and baits it into attacking him until 3 more Egg Hammers show up. Thank goodness none of them are wearing a helmet. They all slam their hammers down on him, but luckily he dodges them by hiding under a manhole. The Egg Hammers chase the Hedgehog and are somehow able to keep up with him for some reason. Like, do they just happen to be running fast despite their size? Or is Sonic just running so slow? Right at the very moment and the nick of time, Tails arrives and saves Sonic from being crushed. Sonic thanks Tails for the rescue and informs him of what's going on in Vista View and that the NPCs, I mean the town militia or whatever, can handle the rest of the normal badniks, but the Egg Hammers are pretty tough to get rid of. They then plan to take them out with the real superpower teamwork by initiating a tag action move that may be a reference to the rolling combo move from Sonic 4 Episode 2 of all games, as they cut an Egg Hammer in half, destroying it. We get a few more panels of the duo taking down the rest of the Egg Bots with ease. Also, I like how they throw in a small reference to Sonic Heroes, as Tails says it would have been a lot easier if they had Knuckles here with them right now, since power type characters are the only ones who can damage these enemy types, but according to Sonic, that will not be needed. They notice the last Egg Hammer and the rest of the Egg Punch trying to get away, worried they might attack the other towns. Sonic instructs Tails to stop the rest of the normal badniks while he takes care of the remaining Egg Hammer, which he destroys with minimal effort. Poor guy got stabbed with his own hammer. Sonic yells to Tails that the badniks are almost out, but Tails, being sassy and casual about it, pulls the lever to close the gate and the badniks crash into it. Thus they celebrate their victory, though briefly as Tails has noticed something a little unusual about this attack, being somewhat coordinated. Sonic fails to realize what it is, and Tails explains why. After they beat Eggman and his forces, they broke control of the Eggman Empire over the world. The Badnik army remained, not as a unified threat, but seen more accidental as opposed to aggression. However, based on what they had just experienced today, it seems that something is making this whole army cohesive. This makes Sonic assume that Eggman may have returned and possibly be behind this, but Tails doesn't believe that that could be the case, considering that he makes sure the heroes knew he'd be back, usually through announcements or notes in some cases. But whatever the case may be, Sonic will keep sticking to his guns no matter what, claiming that he will smash each and every one he sees as he travels. Tails gets a little worried, afraid that something bad might happen to Sonic. The latter assures his friend that there's no need to worry about it and promises that he'll be just fine. He offers Tails to tag along, and Tails initially agrees to do so, but quickly realizes that this town is a mess and people are in despair. He decides to stay and help the locals rebuild their town. Sonic respects Tails' decision and says they will bash some robots together next time. Sonic then leaves Vista View to find more oncoming badniks. Unbeknownst to him, a flapper appears watching him, equipped with a surveillance camera. We are revealed to a mysterious figure who is in one of Eggman's bases. Knowing that Sonic survived the first trial, he orders his troops to deploy a battalion to target the nearest town in order to bait the Hedgehog, while also making sure they are aware of Sonic's success to the Resistance, hoping to crush both him and Amy Rose in, quote-unquote, one strike. Who is this person supposed to be? Infinite? Zavok? Metal Sonic? Or perhaps a potential new villain? Who knows? Guess we'll have to keep reading some more to find out. And this concludes the first issue of IDW Sonic. I'm quite pleasantly surprised at how short this was, but then again, it is the first issue of the series, so it's fine. This issue's story though was off to a great start, and it's the perfect build up to the next 3 issues as well as the next arc moving forward. As it's been heavily evident throughout the issue, this series takes place after the events of Sonic Forces, which was the most recent main series Sonic title at the time. This also means that it takes place in the video game series continuity, hence the flashbacks that we see at the beginning of the issue, although originally it wasn't actually canon to the games, but as of November of last year, it was confirmed that they are indeed 100% canon to the games, which kind of raises a lot of questions, but I'll discuss more on that in a future video. They show another reason as to why this comic takes place after Forces, as we see a couple of NPCs, the militia members, that are clearly based on the species that the players can create for their avatar, as well as their weapons, which are called Wispons. I'm sorry, but I find that to be a very stupid name, in my opinion, and that makes about as much sense as the original name for Super Saiyan Blue, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan. Now, to be perfectly frank, I'm not a fan of Sonic Forces. That game has a lot of issues, as most of the stages were way too short, classic Sonic sucks both gameplay wise and his pointless inclusion, and the story was especially a mixed bag. However, I will admit that it did have some good ideas, and one of them is the avatar mechanic, given that I love games that let you create your own OC to fight alongside the main characters. However, it wasn't enough to make the game appealing for me. I still hate the fact that giving your OC a name and interacting with the other OCs is not an option, considering that games like Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 had that feature. Ugh, it's so dumb. Anyway, let's talk about the highlights of this story. If you're a longtime Sonic fan like myself, I think you can get the gist of all the callbacks here, as well as what's going on in this continuity. Sonic doing his usual shtick, as he's got a carefree spirit, a fearless superhero, and is always willing to help those who are in need of assistance or danger, in which this issue does a great job of displaying. This issue also introduces Tails, who is also well written in this issue, and thank freaking goodness, this carries on for the rest of the series. He doesn't cower in fear like a whiny scaredy cat and actually fights for once. This was something that I also mentioned in my Sonic Universe issue 17 review, and like that issue and that entire Tails Adventure arc, IDW did not disappoint with this for pretty much the same reason. Longtime fans of the Sonic franchise like myself know that Tails is the best friend and sidekick of Sonic since the early 90s, and like most other fictional duos, the relationship, dynamic, and chemistry is perfect, at least most of the time, barring a few exceptions. This also shows how worried Tails is for Sonic, thinking he might end up losing him if something bad were to happen to him, further revealing how much he means to him, and shows how much they've been friends to the point where they are brother figures to one another. Again, IDW definitely works wonders with this relationship, and I'm happy to see that this will continue to go on throughout the comic's run. The action and fight scenes were really well done, though there were some minor inconsistencies with the art style. Like in this panel, it seems that they forgot to fully outline Sonic's right shoe and draw its lines on its bottom, but even so, I still enjoyed it. The best part about this is that they bring in the Egg Hammers from Sonic Heroes in this comic. These guys were essentially the toughest enemies to beat, as you needed your power type characters to defeat them, as they had an insane amount of HP, or alternatively you can just abuse the Team Blast meter glitch and then perform the move, or use the light speed attack to instantly dispose of them. And hilariously enough, this move can still insta-kill the heavy Egg Hammer. Yeah, the light speed attack is that overpowered. As I stated earlier, I love the reference to Sonic 4 Episode 2, where Sonic and Tails pull off a tag action move known as the Rolling Combo. As far as I'm aware, this is the only time they've ever used this move. It's a shame that they don't do it more often because I really love seeing it done in comic style. By the way, to those who refer to this move as 69, please stop. That joke wasn't funny before, and it's still not funny now. This issue was written by our GOAT, Ian Flynn, and he will continue to write future issues going forward. I enjoyed his work on the Archie comics. I love that he wrote 2 episodes of Sonic Boom, and I was especially happy to see that he was the writer for Sonic Frontiers. He did an outstanding job with this introductory story. The references to the games were neat, the characterization was great, the fight scene is cool, and the exposition near the end of the issue is compelling. Again, this story is a build up to the next few issues, and this comic gets even better from there. The art in this issue is fantastic. The pencils were done by Tracy Yardley, whose work I also loved in the Archie comics, and Jim Amash and Bob Smith being in charge of the inking, and Matt Herms in charge of the colors. And I will say this again, I love the way Sonic is drawn in this panel. He looks so dang good. Like, they were so proud of it that they decided to put it as the first page of the graphic novel. And I mean, can you blame them though? Considering most of these people came from modern Archie, the art style in this issue bears a strong resemblance to what you would see in that one. I'm not sure if this is what Yardley was trying to intend with this, but it's really cool to see the similarities. Since this is a new comic series, we have new lettering which is done by Corey Breen. It looks a lot like the lettering from most of the modern Marvel comics, so seeing it done with this comic is pretty cool. For this whole issue, I am giving it a solid 10 out of 10. Once again, a perfect start to this new continuity. The characters are super well drawn, well written, the references are great and accounted for, and no sign of any pacing issues. They waste no time, they get straight into the action, and provide decent context. Now onto the variant covers. Like modern Archie, there are tons of variant covers made for every single issue of the series, and for this particular issue, there are a total of 16 different covers. Yes, 16. Look, I love the artworks for these covers, but geez, do we really need these many covers for one issue? I swear, this trope for comics will never end at this point. Obviously, I'm not going to go over all of them because that's too much to analyze, so I'll just look at only 7 of them that are included in the graphic novel. First off, we have cover B that was drawn by Tracy Yardley. Nothing much happens here, just showcases Sonic running on the loop-de-loop in Green Hill Zone. I do love the detail on the mountains in the background which pay homage to the original Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1, which is another good move by Yardley. Next is the RI-A cover, drawn by a new artist, Nathalie Fordrine. Please forgive me if I mispronounce that name. I am not very good at pronouncing names, so please bear with me. Her artwork is amazing. The shading and shadows on the characters look super well done. This represents what happens in this issue's story, as Sonic and Tails free Flickies from some badniks, while Eggman tries to slap away the other Flickies, which kinda reminds me of that one Sonic Boom scene.
Hey, Eggman, smile for the birdie.
Ow, they're picking my eyes! Why would I ever smile at this?
All in all, I really like Nathalie's artwork, and I'm glad we're going to see more of her work on the variant covers for the future issues of this comic's run. Next is the RI-B cover, which this time shows the characters in their 3D renders that resemble their models that we've been seeing in promotional artwork for the games since Sonic and the Secret Rings and onward. This isn't the first time 3D renders of characters are used for comic covers, as Archie also used 3D renders, though some of them were used from the mainline game's promotional material. This was done by Rafa Knight, as she managed to cleanly replicate the style of the 3D Sonic artwork over the years. Next is the RI-C cover, which is probably my favorite one of these variant covers. You know those unique Sonic Channel artworks that we've been seeing for over 2 decades at this point? All of that was drawn by the legend Yuji Ikiwawa. I love his artwork so much. When I was younger, I was always in love with this art style he used for the characters each time I would see them in promotional artwork, the game covers, and plenty of merchandise, and I still love it to this day. And when I first saw this variant cover, I initially thought he drew this, but no, it was instead drawn by Kieron Gates. And I'm like, how in the absolute heck did he manage to do this? It looks exactly like Yuji Ikiwawa's art style. Oh my god, how did he do it? I love this so much. Literally the best variant cover ever for an issue. Kieron Gates is such a king for managing to replicate Yuji's art style. Like seriously, almost no difference. So talented. Next is the variant cover for the More Fun Games advertisement, which is drawn by Devin Kraft. This one pays homage to the animation of Sonic CD's opening and ending cutscenes, which is an extremely nice detail. Also, I'm not sure why, but this Death Egg robot thing, or whatever it is, reminds me of that giant Eggman statue from Panic Puppet Act 2 from Sonic 3D Blast, at least from the perspective anyway. Next is the cover for Spencer's, which is a retail store. I'm surprised they decided to make a cover for this one too. Crazy. This one was done by two artists who are Jonathan Gray and Matt Herms. The art style looks similar to the one in the actual story, considering Matt Herms did the coloring for it as I mentioned earlier. Eggman looks really great here, and the detail of the Death Egg hovering above his hand is really neat, and this low-key reminds me of that one scene from the Sonic OVA movie. And the last variant cover we're looking at is this one from Superstar. This is my second favorite variant cover, as this gives me tons of Sonic Heroes flashbacks depicting Team Sonic running through Green Hill Zone despite Knuckles not making an appearance in this issue. This was drawn by Edwin Huang, and he did an excellent job. The way that background is slightly blurred just to show the three characters on the foreground is just so amazing. It's so gosh darn good. Fun fact by the way, this is actually an updated version of the cover art for issue 272 from Archie Sonic. Edwin gave a fair reasoning for this, as he was relieved that he was finally able to make an updated version of the cover due to his last one having too many errors. As an artist myself, I can kinda see why he thinks that, but I don't really see anything wrong with the Archie version of the cover. I still think it looks great. I also find it hilarious how he decided to use that as an excuse to improve on it, but to his credit, it's totally not a bad move on his part. I seriously love how we have so many returning artists from the previous comic series to take part in this one. It's so refreshing. And that's all the variant covers designated to this issue. I love each and every one of them, and the people who created these deserve a lot of recognition for their work. So that's the end of the IDW Sonic Issue 1 review. As I stated in the beginning of this video, I've been wanting to discuss this comic on the channel ever since I first read it back in 2021, and I'm super glad to finally talk about it because, holy crap, it's so great, and it gets even better as it goes on. I already know this review series may not do well in terms of views in the algorithm, but even so, it's still worth giving my entire thoughts on all of these issues rather than doing it on my social media. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this whole review. Next time we'll be looking at issue 2, where we will see the next major character in action, Amy Rose. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next review. Hey guys, welcome back to my comic review series on IDW Sonic the Hedgehog, where I cover each and every issue. And today, I am doing a review of issue 2, where it features the next major character, Amy Rose, and also being the second parts of the Fallout Saga. Before I begin, I'm going to give a brief recap of the events of the previous issue. After the events of Sonic Forces, or at least this comic's own iteration of that game's events, Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik had vanished after his last attack, but some of his Bandit army remained. It begins to occur in a village called Vista View, and Sonic, with the help of Tails, manages to defeat every Bandit in the area. Tails eventually theorizes that this recent attack seemed more cohesive and somewhat relentless as of late, and the two assume that Eggman could be behind this or not. After Sonic departs, he is spied on by a camera-equipped flapper, in which we are revealed to a mysterious figure who happens to be the culprit behind these random attacks, and is about to plan his next move. And yes, I do know who this mysterious character is, but to be perfectly crystal clear, I am not going to spoil any future events to those who haven't read the comic yet. If you want to find out what happens next in regards to stuff like that, I highly recommend you buying and reading these issues to see them all for yourself. This comic review series is spoiler free, and this is to represent how I reacted reading these for the first time, so get used to it. Anyway, he plans his next troop of bandits to assault another town and hopes to take down both Sonic and Amy, and it all leads up to this very issue. So, is it just as good or perhaps even better than the first one? Well, let's find out. The main cover for this issue is pretty good. with Sonic giving a peace sign to Amy while the latter travels behind him along with 3 buzz bombers on the right side of the background, and the setting being somewhat in the exact same place as in the cover of the previous issue. Not as interesting as the last one, but still does a decent job at representing the events of this issue. The issue kicks off with Sonic in a new village called Riverside, fighting against another Super Badnik, the Death Crab from Sonic Forces, which I think only showed up once in that game? Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, after a couple of hits to the Badnik, Sonic easily defeats it by slamming it into the ground with a spin attack before it lands near the townspeople. Everything seems all well and good until everybody notices the Death Crab is still functional and tries to get up. Before Sonic gets to do anything, the Death Crab finally gets defeated for good by, you guessed it, Amy Rose. And man, that is such a sick entrance. She greets Sonic and tells him that she heard about his recent actions with Tails in the neighboring town, that being Vista View, and immediately came to this town knowing Sonic would be here as well. Sonic, perplexed at first when being told this news, decides to take his leave, believing things are under control. However, Amy stops him and claims that she came all this way to find him, and for a rather good reason, as she needs him to come back to the Resistance base. Sonic profusely responds by claiming he thought the Resistance was doing cleanup after the conclusion of the war, which is also referring to the events of Forces. Amy explains that it turned out that the cleanup was much larger than they expected, concerning the ongoing onslaught of the Eggman Empire. As such, she states that the Resistance is working to finish the fight from a centralized and organized position so that they can be much more effective. Sonic, of course, passes on that idea and mentions the discussion he had with Tails, where they theorized that the previous group of enemies they fought were way more organized despite Eggman's lack of presence. He also points out that Amy just so happened to know his whereabouts, showing up at the right place at the right time for another Super Badnik to fight, as if they're being baited. Honestly, he's not completely wrong there. See the previous issue for details. Still, Amy urges Sonic to come back to the Resistance, but Sonic only has his own reasons to figure out what the heck is going on. At this very moment, a villager named Lanolin approaches Sonic and Amy and tells them that they are once again under attack, in which Sonic blatantly assumes she is referring to the Death Crab they defeated, but it's actually a horde of badniks coming from the west. Knowing that the Death Crab was nothing more than a cheap decoy, Sonic runs out to fend against the badniks while Amy goes with Lanolin to the bunker, which was formerly a town hall that was rebuilt during the war. As Sonic is fighting the badniks, Amy realizes the militia in Riverside and has them get into their positions and wait for the opportunity to fire at the badniks once they've entered the square, and as they do, the residents manage to wipe out all the badniks at Amy's command. Sonic, impressed by this tactic, comments on the fact that he thought Knuckles was the commander of the Resistance, meaning that this is something that he'd normally do. Amy responds by saying that she's only keeping said Resistance organized for the time being. As Sonic asks what's the next plan now, Amy states that despite their advantages, there are still too many badniks approaching, and the only way the villagers can stand a chance is if they find out where they're coming from and thin out their advances. They begin to do just that with the real superpower and teamwork by blazing their way through a horde of badniks. And holy crap, why are these drawn so cleanly well? Amy once again tries to convince Sonic to return to the Resistance, albeit in a flirtatious way, but Sonic still declines. The two start to have a funny back and forth banter with each other as they take out the next few badniks and can I just say how much I love this right now? Like, I can't help but read these in Roger Craig Smith and Sidney Robertson's voices, and they make these even more hilarious. I don't know if that's just me. After they take out the remaining egg pawns, they see another badnik, which appears to be a bluefish transporter from Sonic Lost World, deploying even more egg pawns. Seeing how much of a tough crowd it is, Sonic suggests an attack called the Croquet Bomber, in which Amy obliges. Sonic revs up a spin dash, and Amy launches him with full force with her Pico Hammer into the bluefish transporter, destroying it along with the remaining egg pawns. Also, what? Is this a Sonic Advance 3 reference? That is sick! Amy finds a dazed Sonic on the ground, asking him if he's okay, and Sonic just finds it all satisfying after that. Bruh, Sonic's casualness never fails to amaze me sometimes. Now that the invasion is over, Amy comes to the conclusion that Sonic will head off somewhere else now, which Sonic says he will do. And we get another greatly drawn Sonic in this panel, where he goes, "It's what I do. Just keep moving." doing good, saving folks, and living as free as the wind, living by my way, my own way. This causes Amy to fall in love with him for a few seconds, but she quickly shrugs it off and admits that Sonic is right. She knows that Sonic is the way he is, and it's the main reason she loves him. She doesn't want to change him as a result, and wants to let him do what he does best. Sonic then offers Amy to come along, but unfortunately for Amy, she can't, as the Resistance needs her to keep everything in order. She does inform him that Knuckles went to investigate a town in the south, but hasn't heard from him since, and suggests that Sonic should help him out. And we have probably the funniest moment in this comic so far, where Sonic goes, "Aye, Captain Commander Rose, ma'am," and then Amy replies, "Don't make me slap you." Oh my god. That had me cracking up so much when I first saw this. It was so funny. This writing had no business being so good. After Sonic leaves, he is once again spied on by another camera-equipped flapper in which the mysterious character is watching live footage of through a monitor at Eggman's base. He is distraught and frustrated that things didn't go as he planned, as he did not account for Amy's advantage against the Badniks, and Sonic is deviating from his projected path. At this moment, Orbot and Cubot come in and tell the figure about Sonic's current destination, as two strange-looking characters are being displayed in the tablet, indicating they are in the place where Sonic is heading towards. The Mystery Man is pleased with this, and hopes that these two new bad guys will defeat Sonic. And thus, the story concludes here. I can't even comprehend how fantastic this issue was. There were plenty of moments that exceeded my expectations. So let's talk about the highlights. This issue's art style was handled by Adam Bryce Thomas, who is another returning artist from the Archie comics. When I first read this issue, his art style didn't really click with me, which is probably why I didn't read this as much as issues 1, 3, and 4. But when we're reading it for this video, I actually think it's pretty good. In fact, some of the expressions in this art style are freaking hilarious, like Amy being very perplexed in this panel, and Sonic getting caught by the egg pawns about to snipe him. I don't know if it's just me, but I just find these really amusing each time I see them. My main problem with this art style though is that they seem to be slightly thinner and less streamlined. I don't know a better way to phrase this, but I just don't think it was as good as the previous issue's art style. But that's not to say a few aren't fantastic looking, because this panel of Sonic right here is easily the best one in this issue. The way he is shaded with the shadows and how he is reflected with the lighting of the sunset is magnificent. I love this so much. Adam Bryce Thomas did an amazing job with this style, and I can't wait to see how he has improved in future issues going forward. Now let's discuss the main girl herself, Amy Rose. Over the years of becoming a Sonic fan, Amy has grown on me quite a lot. I used to find her a bit annoying sometimes, usually because of her obsession with Sonic, but as I realized over those years, she is a character who is often misunderstood or even overrated, and I've come to the realization that she was way better than I initially remembered. Many people would often bring up how good she was in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, but got downgraded in Sonic Heroes, which I greatly disagree. I think she was great in that game, and I am not afraid to say that's one of her best characterizations in the franchise. But that's besides the point. We're not talking about mainline Amy, we are talking about IDW Amy. I love this incarnation of Amy, and it's easily the best version of her in my opinion. She doesn't immediately act like a total psycho fangirl or constantly obsessed over Sonic. She acts more responsible and is dependent. She does still show signs of being obsessed with Sonic, as it's revealed twice and especially in this panel, but it's much less excessive. As such, she is written well in this entire issue, and this will carry on for the rest of this comic. The idea for organizing the Resistance is well executed, and that's another reason why I like her portrayal in this series. And of course, this wouldn't be a good story without Sun Amy moments. Although most of it is just them on a mission to fight Badniks to save the village, I love their conversations and their witty banters they have with each other, like Amy requesting Sonic to return to the Resistance and Sonic being all like, "Nope, I'm gonna do what's best for me." And as stated before, my favorite moment and the funniest one in the comics so far, "Don't make me slap you." Seriously, I can never not laugh at this. It was so funny. Once again, Ian Flynn did not disappoint with this one. The way he wrote Sonic and Amy's dynamic is perfect. Like, I literally cannot stress how good these character interactions are. God dang, Ian, how are you such a good comic book writer? Like the previous issue, this one also has great action scenes, and here I will admit that plenty of these look better than the previous issue. The best part about this is this cool move, in which they call the Croquet Bomber. Upon seeing this for the first time, I instantly got reminded of Amy's tag action from Sonic Advance 3, where if Sonic was in the air, he'd be suspended in a spin jump animation for a few frames, before Amy launches him upwards. I feel like that's basically what this is, and honestly, if that was the case, then I'm actually glad they referenced that, and it always makes me happy to see that game get some love for once. I don't care what anyone says, Sonic Advance 3 is a great game. Oh yeah, this issue is the first to make a reference to a vocal song from one of the games. In this case, Sonic says the line that is loosely derived from his theme song from Sonic Adventure. Don't believe me? Well, have a listen.
I got my way, my own way.
There's one discrepancy that this issue has. For whatever reason, the egg pawns are drawn with 3 fingers instead of 4. I've never actually noticed this until rereading this issue for this video. I know it's a very minor nitpick, but I just find that to be very odd, considering that in the previous issue and in the games, they were often depicted with 4 fingers. And to this day, it remains unclear if this was done on purpose or not, so yeah, I just find this to be pretty mind-boggling. This issue gets a 9 out of 10. Like the first issue, there are no signs of any pacing issues, they get straight into the action, Sonic and Amy's dynamic is perfect, greatly drawn scenes and panels, and has fairly good comedic moments. It does a great job informing the readers as to what's going on in this continuity, as they still provide decent context, and it lets us know what happens next in this arc. And now we have these variant covers. Unlike the last issue which had 7 variant covers, this one only has 3. So this is going to be a lot shorter than my analysis on the last issue's covers from the previous review. First off, we have cover B. This actually represents the main setting and situation of this issue's plot, as it shows Sonic being on the defensive, preparing to fight the robots and protecting the villagers, with Amy right by his side while doing the same thing as well, and with the death crab looming over them. For some baffling reason, this cover has the egg pawns from Sonic Forces despite them not appearing in the actual issue which used the normal egg pawns. This may be probably because IDW did not have any access to these designs, which I find to be super odd and weird. Yet another discrepancy that this issue has, but it's still a good cover overall. This was drawn by Adam Bryce Thomas, as if that wasn't already obvious enough by the art style. Next is the RI-A cover, which, like the last issue's RI-A cover, is drawn by Nathalie Fordrine, and it's very eye-catching as it shows Sonic, Amy, and even Tails, who doesn't appear in this issue, fighting some badniks in the casino night-like area. And once again, the shading and shadows look very good, and I like the way Amy's hammer is slightly blurred out as she hits a badnik with it. And that Egg Fleet callback on the left side of the background is brilliant. Seriously, I love Nathalie's work on these covers. She did an amazing job as usual, and believe me, we are going to be seeing her artwork a lot in this comic. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot of her artwork on these covers for the future issues of this comics run. She is very talented. Lastly, we have the RI-B cover. Doesn't really show much happening here, as Sonic and Amy run through the woods together while passing a future sign from Sonic CD. This artwork was done by Jonathan Gray, and the coloring was handled by Matt Herms. It's a lot similar to the Spencer's variant cover from the previous issue, so this can be easily recognized if you're familiar with Jonathan and Matt's work. So that's all the variant covers this issue has to offer. The first issue had better variant covers, but all the ones for this issue are aesthetically pleasing as well. And so this concludes my IDW Sonic issue 2 review. It continues to show what made IDW Sonic so great, and its story definitely did not disappoint my expectations. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this whole review. Next time we'll be taking a look at issue 3, where we will see our boy, Knuckles the Echidna. Thank you all for watching, I'm Bronte75, and I hope you enjoyed the review. Hey guys, welcome back to my comic review series on IDW Sonic the Hedgehog, where I cover each and every issue. Today, I am doing a review of issue 3, where it features our boy, Knuckles the Echidna, and being the third part of the Fallout Saga. Before I begin, I'm going to give a brief recap of the previous events leading up to this point. In the first issue, Sonic began his quest of traveling to areas in search of the random rogue badniks as he meets up with Tails, who theorizes that the attacks seem more cohesive, and they assume that Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik could potentially be behind this fiasco. And in the second issue, Sonic meets up with Amy in another village named Riverside, where the latter was in charge of organizing the resistance. After defeating all of the badniks, Amy informs Sonic that Knuckles went to investigate a town in the south and might need Sonic's assistance. After Sonic departs, he is once again spied on by a Camry called Flapper, which shows the mysterious figure the current situation, which leaves him frustrated. Fortunately for him though, Orbot informs the mystery man about Sonic's current destination, as new strange looking characters are displayed on the tablet, and it all leads up to this issue. The cover is very visually appealing, as it shows Knuckles looking at Sonic with an angry look on his face, while Sonic does the "Hey, what's up" pose with some choppers in the background. And the setting appears to be Emerald Hill from Sonic 2, judging by that small island on the left side of the background. Even though this might look like a pretty plain cover for the issue, it is still great, and I think it does a good job on getting readers interested in buying the comic. Also, it's really hard to tell if Knuckles is either surprised to see Sonic behind him, or if he's trying to fight him. But either way, at least the latter doesn't happen in this story. We open up on Sonic arriving at another village called Barricade Town, where he witnesses one of the mass-produced Death Egg robots from Sonic Forces that has easily been dispatched, courtesy of the Echidna himself. Sonic runs over to Knuckles and greets him, who responds by saying, "Long time no see."
Long time no see. Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Long time no see. Long time no see.
Long time no see. Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Yep, even in the comics, they still say that line. Ugh. Anyway, he asks Sonic why he has come here, and the latter tells him that he arrived to assist him after being informed by Amy about his current progress. See the previous review for details. After being reminded that he is farther away from the HQ, as he is still the commander of the Resistance, Knuckles remarks that while he did find it more interesting that they fought to save the world, the current events where everyone is focusing on rebuilding, all scheduling, and handling inventory are something that he has no patience for, and is ready to go back to Angel Island and go on some treasure hunting. Sonic relates as he mentions that Amy tried to enlist him by coming back to the Resistance, to which Knuckles finds to be pretty absurd. Already 2 pages in, and this writing is starting to please me. Knuckles explains to the Blue Blur that this town is a hub for Wispon distribution. Apparently, something happened that caused the shipment to slow down or suddenly stop, or as Knuckles puts it, dried up, and he came to see what has caused this. He then calls out to an inhabitant in the village, who happens to be a gatekeeper, to let him inside. The gatekeeper responds by claiming he's been ordered to not open the gate for anyone, including heroes presumably. Of course, Sonic and Knuckles climb up over the wall and enter the town, which for some reason surprises the townsfolk and run away and hide in fear. Upon noticing this, Knuckles wonders if the aggressive badnik attacks has got them spooked, but Sonic believes it might be something else. The gatekeeper tells him that they shouldn't have tried to come here, which prompts Sonic to reply that they can fix whatever the issue is. The gatekeeper believes that they can't do that because they, meaning people, have taken all the wisps and wispons, and without them, they do not stand a chance. As Knuckles questions who the guy is referring to, Sonic remarks to the guy that he literally just watched Knuckles solo the heck out of a super badnik, proving that they can handle themselves. The gatekeeper informs them that just before the war between the Eggman Empire and the Resistance have come to a closure, 2 deadly looking mercenaries appeared and saved the town by driving Eggman's forces away. They mentioned at some point that they would improve the town's defenses, however, all they did was take the town's arsenal and keep them prisoners within it. As a result, They are forced to do everything that they are told to do, with some bandits stalking their homes, preventing them from escaping. Sonic and Knuckles decide to put a stop to these so-called mercenaries and head into the supply depot, which was formerly a fortress. Very shortly, they make it to the depot where the Wisps are contained inside deployment pods. Upon finding the Wisps, Knuckles says that Tails, before going solo, had given the Resistance the cipher for the aliens' language. The Resistance asked for the help in fighting Eggman, to which the Wisps happily volunteered for and even decided to wait in the deployment pods when the troops would enter an area. Being saddened by the Wisps being hoarded, Knuckles finds this to be inexcusable. This is literally the plot of Sonic Colors all over again, if nothing else. Knuckles then hears loud laughing in the background, and it turns out that it's coming from the mercenaries, who happen to be two skunk characters that we were alluded to in the previous issue and are having the town's villagers as their slaves, even claiming that they will beat them up if they don't do what they're instructed to do. Angered by this, Knuckles is eager to fight them, but Sonic suggests they should take it slow so that the villagers will have time to escape out of the line of fire. Sonic then calls out to the two skunk guys, introducing himself and Knuckles before giving them two options. Either they surrender for their crimes, or face punishment. The skunk guys get annoyed by their fun getting ruined by the heroes, and they also introduce themselves as Rough and Tumble while doing some pretty lame poses. Are they trying to take notes from the Ginyu Force or something? Even Sonic knows how ridiculous this is. After a small comedic moment, the fight begins as Sonic takes on Tumble while Knuckles takes on Rough. We get 3 panels of a decent fight scene, with the skunk guys able to put up a decent fight against the heroes. Tumble thinking he's playing a game of basketball by taking advantage of Sonic's spin attack, and Rough uses a move called the Stink Bomber, in which he sprays green smoke, or gas maybe, all over Knuckles. Makes sense. I mean, he is a skunk after all. However, this wasn't enough, as Knuckles still comes through and punches Rough through the ground. As the two skunks recover from Sonic and Knuckles' attacks, they start arming themselves with Wisp Bombs, hoping to win against the heroes. Knowing that this could cause a problem, Knuckles suggests that they should use Wisp Bombs as well, but Sonic has a better idea. Oh hey, it's Yacker! Sonic calls out to all the Wisps powering the Wisp Bombs by reminding them that he saved their planet from Dr. Eggman, and they stuck around to assist them on the Lost Hex, and most recently, helped the Resistance fight against the Eggman Empire. He tells them that in spite of their passive ways, they shouldn't let jerks like Rough and Tumble boss them around, and they don't need them. And this approach succeeds as the whips inside the Wisp Bombs come out, rendering the weapons inactive. Eventually, more Wisps come into the scene, notably very angry with Rough and Tumble's actions. The skunks try to get their Wisp Bombs to work, but to no avail. Sonic and Knuckles make fun of their lame performance as they go, "It's kick butt time for Rough and Tumble!" Then they proceed to ultimately whoop their butts. The heroes bring the defeated mercenaries outside while all the villagers in the town celebrate. The gatekeeper comes to Sonic and congratulates him for saving the village. The yellow drill whip appears and speaks in an unknown language, though they can't understand what it's saying as they don't have Tails and his Miles electric translator. But Sonic comes to the realization that it's saying that all the Wisps plan to stick around and help the citizens protect their home, much to the gatekeeper's happiness. As Rough and Tumble are being taken to custody, they arrogantly swear they will take revenge on Sonic and Knuckles, once again referring to themselves in a lame, flashy manner. But Knuckles ain't having that as he gives them the death stare. You tell him, Knuckles. He thanks Sonic for his help and hopes that things will settle down soon as he misses being on Angel Island. Sonic replies by saying that while vacation will be great, he still has to find out who's in charge of the remaining badniks, but before that, they must party first and all the villagers join in on the fun. And like the ending for the first 2 issues, a flapper appears watching them, in which the mystery man is watching live footage of the current situation through a monitor at an Eggman themed base. Seeing that Knuckles is taking part in playing the hero, he realizes that both Angel Island and the Master Emerald are unguarded, which he states that they might considerably speed up his plans. Oh boy. So that's the end of this issue's story, and I gotta say, this one was another banger. First of all, this art style. What the heck? It is so good, and it's probably one of the best ones I've ever seen for a Sonic comic. This was done by another returning Archie Sonic artist, Jennifer Hernandez, and she did an outstanding job with making the characters look very expressive in most panels, and it definitely helps them emote in a cartoonish way, which admittedly is pretty standard and generic for most comics, but for this issue specifically, I still think it's one of the best ones that IDW Sonic has seen thus far, and it's personally one of my favorites to this day. And as I just said earlier, I really like that the art style has a cartoonish style to it. I say this because, as someone who loves watching cartoon shows, the first thing about the art style that intrigued me is the slightly bigger but detailed thick lines around the characters. It vividly reminds me of two of my childhood shows that I loved watching when I was younger. The characters in each show were drawn and animated with thick lines around them, and they are one of the reasons why I became an artist in the first place, aside from Sonic of course. Case in point, I love the art in this issue. Jennifer Hernandez handled this so perfectly, and I hope to see more of her work on this series in the future. Now, let's talk about our main man of this story, Knuckles. Knuckles has always been one of my favorite characters in the entire Sonic series, as he was really cool, calm, collected, and very independent. Despite this, he seemed to be very gullible and quite easy to manipulate, seeing as how he was tricked by Eggman multiple times in the games, once in Sonic Underground, and thrice in Sonic X. And in the Sonic Boom series, he was depicted as a very dumb and immature character, and got immensely flanderized compared to his other counterparts, although he still had good moments, mainly in the TV series. The problem with Knuckles in the main game series is, since Sonic Rush and Sonic 06, he was heavily reduced to being a joke / comic relief character, as he's only just there to be nothing but a chew toy, serve no purpose to the plot, and they have done an unfortunate disservice to his character as a result. It's especially egregious how in games like Sonic Colors DS, Generations, and Lost World, where he is just there to task you or help you out in missions or give tips, or do absolutely nothing in Lost World's case. Sonic Forces seemed like it had a decent step in for his character, but considering that game's awful story and terrible writing, it wasn't enough to suffice. But at Sonic Frontiers, they actually remembered what his personality was like. He was actually really cool again, and we even see heartwarming moments between him and Sonic, and I especially loved him in the Final Horizons DLC. And oh my god, don't even get me started on that Divergence prologue short from the official Sonic YouTube channel. He was amazing in that too. So where does that leave IDW Knuckles? Well, much like Amy, this is one of the best versions of Knuckles, period. Right up there with movie Knuckles. He doesn't come off as an arrogant jerk, he is not gullible, neither he or Sonic attempt to pick fights with one another, which is something that the Archie series was guilty of at times, and he is no longer a joke of a character. He retains the coolness that he had in SA1, SA2, Sonic Heroes, and heck, even Sonic X. He had no problems working with Sonic to save the village from rough and tumble, and I especially love that death stare that he gave them. You do not want to mess with this guy. And the cool thing about Knuckles' character and identity in this series is that he remembers his duties on Angel Island, meaning that he needs to guard and protect the Master Emerald, and thus, he views the whole island as his home. They actively acknowledge the Master Emerald for once in such a long time. When was the last time the Master Emerald was ever acknowledged? Sonic Rivals 2? Dang. But yeah, I'm glad that they finally remembered the Master Emerald exists after so long. Yet another reason as to what made IDW Sonic so great, it gets so many things right that the main series games do not, and this right here is one of them. Knuckles was always a very complex and compelling character, and IDW did him justice, and thankfully, his characterization will remain this way for the rest of the series. Next, let's discuss the new characters created for this series, the skunk duo, Rough and Tumble. The comic doesn't actually mention this, but these guys are actually brothers who just so happen to have become mercenaries at some point before the events of this comic. We do get a small backstory as to how they took over Barricade Town and enslaved all the villagers, but aside from that, not much is really known about them, at least as far as I'm aware. These guys are just pretty much generic grunts who easily get dropped like wusses in the end, and they obviously have nothing to do with the ongoing Bandit attacks. They're basically Bebop and Rocksteady from TMNT, and maybe also the Ginyu Force from Dragon Ball Z with their not so intriguing poses and calling out their own names. The reason I'm mentioning these guys is because they eventually become recurring characters later in the comic, so this won't be the last time we'll see them. Not saying that they're bad characters or anything, they're fine. They have cool designs and they're a neat addition to Sonic's new cast of villains, but I really hope their personalities will be fleshed out more in their next appearances. Next highlight in this issue are the Wisps, and please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this name, but oh my god, this word is so hard to pronounce and I can tell how many times I've messed it up throughout this video, so please forgive me if I mess this up because this word is not easy to pronounce. Anyways, since Sonic Colors, these aliens have been a mainstay in the series. In that game, they gave Sonic some really cool abilities known as color powers, which would allow him to traverse through areas or attack bosses. Their role in this issue appears to take many cues from Sonic Forces, with the inclusions of Wispons, which we've already seen in the first 2 issues, and it's really cool how they gave an in-universe explanation on why they are still around at this point, because Sonic mentioned that they assisted him back on the Lost Hex, referring to the events of Sonic Lost World, and according to Knuckles, Tails had given the Resistance some sort of a cipher code that would allow them to understand the Wisps, and that the aforementioned aliens would volunteer to help. This is another thing that the comic didn't elaborate on much, and I kinda wish they explained more in regards to that, but considering that this is a 20-page story, we unfortunately will not be getting any of that. Still, I like their inclusion in this series. I know a lot of people hate the Wisps, but to me personally, they aren't really as bad as they're made out to be. And who knows if we may possibly see another character who is very skilled with Wispons and loves Wisps. Oh, and I completely forgot about this. In this panel, Sonic mentions a group called the Hooligans. Is he referring to these guys? Fang the Sniper, Bean the Dynamite, and Bark the Polar Bear? I know they were relatively well-known characters in the Archie comics, as that series came up with the idea of that name, featuring these 3 characters, starting with the second issue of Sonic Universe. The fact that they are mentioned as a throwaway line in this issue is pretty clever by Ian Flynn, as many people who don't know about these guys will most likely not get this reference. And apparently, at the time of this video, this line would end up becoming true, as the Hooligans would eventually appear in this series in the 30th anniversary special and in the Fang the Hunter miniseries, although they aren't actually called that there. I haven't read either of those yet, but I do plan on reviewing them someday. And one more thing to point out is Knuckles' line in this panel, which is taken directly from Sonic Generations.
Thanks for the help. Not that I needed it, but it's good to have my sanctuary back.
Also, technically in both cases, you did need Sonic's help. Just admit that you always can't do things on your own, dude. Also, does anyone find it weird how there are egg pawns from Sonic Forces that use the original egg pawns color scheme? Apparently, the reasoning for this mishap is that Jennifer Hernandez accidentally drew the designs for the former when it was already stated by Ian that they did not have access to their designs. Either Sega somehow let this slide, or it was most likely ignored. Super odd, and it is still a discrepancy like in issue 2. For this issue, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Like the first 2 issues, it had an amazing story, the dynamic and chemistry between Sonic and Knuckles was good, the Wisps inclusion was handled decently well, the neat addition of the new guys were nice, the art style is very unique and awesome, and there are still no pacing issues. Ian Flynn once again never fails with his writing. Let's move on to these variant covers. Like the previous issue, there are only 3 of these, so once again my analysis on these will be a lot shorter. First we have cover B, which chronicles the events of this issue's story, where Rough and Tumble are, again, doing Ginyu Force like poses with a spotlight centered on them, along with some confetti for some reason. And I have to ask, who even likes this performance? Who is cheering for these guys? Sonic and Knuckles definitely aren't. In all seriousness though, this is overall a fantastic cover. This was also done by Jennifer Hernandez, if that wasn't already evident by the art style. And seriously, I just love how cartoony the characters look. Next is the RI-A cover, and this one's my personal favorite of these covers, as it's another wonderful masterpiece drawn by the talented Nathalie Fordrine. Sonic and Knuckles appear to be having a race with each other by climbing up a mountain, which they actually did do in the issue. Oh, and Tails is there cheering them on. He makes no appearance in the issue, but it's still nice to see that he is rooting for his older brother figures. Actually, now that I think about it, this reminds me of that Sonic X scene, where they practically did the same thing, with the only difference being Knuckles chasing Sonic as opposed to racing him. Wonder if that was what Nathalie was going for. But either way, awesome covers, and it is yet another one of my favorites from her. And lastly, we have the R-B cover. Similar to cover B, this also chronicles what happens in the story as Sonic and Knuckles are fighting rough and tumble, with the 3 Wisps joining in as well. Okay, maybe only 2 Wisps are joining in. That blue Wisp is doing absolutely nothing. I love how the violet Wisp is biting Ruff's tail and the red Wisp grabbing Tumble's hair. They're so funny to look at each time I see this cover. And seriously, why is that blue cube Wisp even here? Do something already! This cover's art was done by Jamal Peppers and the coloring was done by Heather Brickle. They did an excellent job with this one. So that's all of the issue's variant covers, and in my opinion, I think this issue probably had the weakest appealing variant covers compared to the ones from the first 2 issues. The first one still has the best ones in the comics so far, and the second one had a decent step up with its covers. Even still, this issue's variant covers are still phenomenal, especially the second one. So that's the end of my IDW Sonic issue 3 review. It continues to show what made IDW Sonic so great, and I'm super glad they understood Knuckles' character and wrote him to be on par with his personality in the Dreamcast era Sonic games. But this is only just the beginning. He will definitely be having more good moments like this later in the comics run. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this whole review. Next time we'll be taking a look at issue 4, and judging by this cover, I can tell some good things are about to happen as we are going to be meeting a new main character for this series, as well as a familiar face, and it has already got me excited. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I'm Bronte75, and I hope you enjoyed the review. Hey guys, welcome back to my comic review series on IDW Sonic the Hedgehog, where I cover each and every issue. Today I am doing a review of issue 4, which is the 4th and final parts of the Fallout Saga. Before I begin, I'm going to do a brief recap of all the previous events leading up to this point. In the first issue, Sonic began his quest of traveling to villages in search of the random rogue badniks, where he meets up with Tails, who theorizes that their presence seemed more cohesive. They assume that this could be the work of Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik. And in the second issue, Sonic encounters Amy in another village where the latter was in charge of organizing the resistance, and they both make short work of the bandits that had attacked the village. And in the third issue, Sonic helps out Knuckles, who had just destroyed a mass-produced Death Egg robot, as they eventually fight against 2 mercenaries, Rough and Tumble. With the help of the Wisps, they easily defeat them. After everyone celebrates, a camera-equipped flapper is observing them, which shows the mysterious man the current situation through a monitor at an Eggman-themed base. Knowing that both Angel Island and the Master Emerald are unguarded, he states that they will considerably accelerate his plans. I am still wondering who this man is supposed to be, but we'll have to keep reading some more to find out. Anyways, let's talk about the main cover for the issue. Already this looks to be a very awesome cover. Sonic again doing basic Sonic things while grabbing the tail of the new main character for this series, Tangle the Lemur, and boy do I have a lot to say about this character. And also in the cover, we have Blaze the cat in the background appearing behind them while using her pyrokinesis powers. I did not think we'd be getting her this early in the comic's life, but either way, this has already got me pumped. And I guess it's the best time to bring this up, but the first 4 main covers of the series are actually one big panoramic cover. I had no idea that all of these covers were connected to one another until I was gathering research for these review videos, but dang, this is really cool. I like to think the cover for the first issue takes place in Green Hill Zone, and the next 3 take place in Emerald Hill, going by that small island in the background. Case in point though, this is overall fantastic, and Tyson Hess did an excellent job with all of these covers. Now let's move on to the story. We open up on Sonic arriving at another village called Spiral High, where it is being besieged by a giant buzz bomber, which is dropping loads of badniks into the village. As Sonic enters the village, he begins to ponder that the army could be tough to take down on his own, and reconsiders that he should have rejoined the resistance. Conveniently, however, there are local militia town members already fighting against the badniks. Sonic dismisses his thoughts about the resistance and begins to do what needs to be done. He then notices somebody taking on some of the badniks, and it just so happens to be a young lemur who has a long extendable tail, which she uses to grab several robots together to crush them. At least I think that's what she's doing, causing them to go out with a bang. As she celebrates but also feels pain from her slightly burnt tail, a surviving Eggpon attempts to shoot her from behind, but Sonic comes just in time to smash it, telling the lemur to watch her back next time. The lemur welcomes Sonic to her hometown, claiming that there is currently a robot problem. They both introduce themselves to each other, as the lemur introduces herself as Tangle. Also, greatly drawn panel, by the way. Tangle explains that she has been fending off the badnik attacks, or odd raids as she puts it, but nowhere near as excessive as the current situation. She grabs the remaining Eggpons with her tail, allowing Sonic to deal the final blows. He confirms that this horde of badniks has been becoming more organized, which is the main reason why he's currently looking into it. See the previous 3 reviews for details. The two get halted by more badniks and a giant, heavily armed Motobug. The Eggpon controlling the bug fires a blast at them, which they barely dodge, and the other Eggpons fall victim to it in the process. Suddenly, another giant Motobug crashes through a wall in front of them, and now they are surrounded by all the enemies. Feeling slightly anxious about this, Tangle asks Sonic if he is supposedly the advanced guard of the resistance, to which Sonic replies that they are pretty much all busy dealing with similar attacks. Tangle then comes up with an idea to split them 50-50, and Sonic agrees. At this moment, a storm of fire occurs, incinerating several Eggpons in its path. As it clears, it is revealed to be holy crap, it's Blaze the Cat! Let's go! Sonic happily goes to greet Blaze, while Tangle is extremely perplexed. And thank goodness he didn't say long time no see at this time. Blaze asks if these are the Eggman robots that just got torched during her entrance, to which Sonic confirms that it is true, and proposes to her to help get rid of the robots, and she agrees. Also, the way Tangle is drawn in this panel is priceless. After that, we get 3 pages of a great fight scene, all of which that have beautifully drawn panels. Blaze wiping out a couple of the Eggpons with her pyrokinesis powers, Tangle eventually stepping in to redirect the Motobug's turret into shooting itself, and also taking its arms off to fling it to the other giant Motobug, and yeah, these all speak for themselves. But I will say, I just really admire how well these are drawn. Blaze comes to the realization that the 3 of them are not enough to stop this oncoming onslaught, regardless of how many militia troops they have left, seeing as how these bots are replenishing the ranks faster than being disposed of. Tangle points out that they are all coming from the giant buzz bomber looming over the town, and Sonic adds that it's beefier than the blowfish transporter that he and Amy took out. He asks Blaze if there's a way she can make it up there, but Blaze says it's too high for her to reach. This is when Tangle comes up with an idea which involves the use of the real superpower of teamwork, as she has them lean onto her tail and launches them high up into the air. Not particularly sure how this is even possible, but it's still very cool nonetheless. Also, Sanae's anybody? Yeah, I used to ship them too. Sonic forms a spin attack, allowing Blaze to throw him inside the ginormous badnik with some fiery force to break inside its interior. He successfully enters, surprises the robots with an unusual grin expression, and begins to trash everything inside. When you see somebody making this face as they enter your property, you know you're screwed. Afterwards, the giant buzz bomber becomes immobilized, and Blaze uses this as an opportunity to finish it off by firing basically her version of a Kamehameha wave at it, and thus putting an end to the badnik army invading the village. Blaze safely floats back down to the ground, and is praised by Tangle for how amazing her fire powers are. Tangle then wonders if Sonic will be okay, with Blaze reassuring he will be fine. And as such, in your typical Sonic fashion, he survives. Is anyone even surprised at this point? And just like in issue 2, he found this to be very exciting and fun. If that still isn't casual behavior, I don't know what is. Now that the fight's over, it's time for introductions. Sonic introduces both girls to one another, Tangle as a local, and Blaze as a princess from another dimension. Being briefly flabbergasted by this, Tangle thanks the princess, or Highness as she puts it, for saving her home. Sonic asks the princess what she's here for, and Blaze replies that the will of the Soul Emeralds had apparently revealed some sort of a terrible events that could potentially happen on Sonic's world as well, and she has come to prevent it. Sonic jokingly explains to her that she is 7 months too late, and describes the events that happened in Sonic Forces. Yeah, we all know the deal at this point. Tangle interjects that if the Badniks are getting more organized, then perhaps an even greater threat could potentially be on its way, and Blaze wonders if the Soul Emeralds had even directed her here without a proper reason. Until that reason and purpose is made clear, she decides to stay in Sonic's world for the time being, with Sonic knowing he can count on her. Blaze then offers to assist in quelling the flames the village has sustained, and Tangle obliges to let the princess do so. As Blaze leaves with Tangle, she tells Sonic that she will lead the hunt for the supposed ringleader for him, and the latter gives them his goodbyes. After taking a small breather, he runs off to continue his quest. Elsewhere, instead of a scene of the mysterious figure looking on to Sonic's progress, we instead get a scene of a woman telling her son it's getting late, and the crying child protests and says that his wagon is broken. They are being watched by someone peeking through a window's blinds, and it turns out that it's Dr. Eggman himself? What the heck? Okay, this raises a lot of questions. So that's the end of the story for this issue, and oh boy, where do I begin? This issue is my personal favorite of the first 4 that were released weekly back in April 2018, and it still stands out to this day. First off, the art style for this issue is easily the best one so far in the comic, right on par with issue 2. This was done by another returning Archie Sonic veteran, Evan Stanley. I really love the way she draws these characters. She knew how to make them look super expressive in both comedic and serious moments. You know how in shows like in Teen Titans and in TMNT 2012, where they'd have comedic moments where the characters would have silly, angry, or cute expressions, but also in other instances where they'd have serious expressions during intense moments? That's basically what this art style has been throughout the whole issue. My favorite ones being this panel of Sonic and Tangle, which was used in the back cover of the first graphic novel, by the way, Sonic approving Blaze with a thumbs up, Sonic, Blaze, and Tangle destroying 3 egg pawns, Sonic and Blaze when agreeing to Tangle's plan to land on her tail, Sonic's weird yet amusing grin expression, his dizzy and dazed look, and him taking a breather in these 3 panels. But the best one of them all, this panel right here. Oh my gosh, she looks so freaking good, and I love the way she was drawn. Just like how greatly well Sonic was drawn in the first issue second page, I also couldn't fathom how often I gush about this panel upon seeing it for the first time. Evan Stanley, in my personal opinion, is easily one of my favorite IDW Sonic artists of all time. She is very talented, she is the GOAT, and I see why she is a well-known figure amongst the Sonic community. Aside from the series and the Archie comics, Evan has had a great amount of experience with the Sonic media. She was the writer for the Sonic Boom episode, 3 Men and My Baby, she did the penciling for Sonic Boom Shattered Crystal's comic prologue, and even made some promotional material artwork for the official Sonic social media accounts. But most of her work on the franchise comes from the comics. And of course, as for her work on IDW, we will be seeing more of her work throughout the rest of this comics run. Next highlight is one of the new main characters created for this series, Tangle the Lemur. I love this character. She has an intriguing design, she has a cool personality, and she is just flat out hilarious. The idea for this new character was conceptualized by Ian Flynn, as he and the rest of the staff at IDW wanted to add a female character who would be similar to other Sonic characters who are capable of fighting and wielding their own exclusive abilities, and that this new female character would have a special ability tied to her features as well. When the staff was coming up with the design and name for the character, one of the concepts is that she could be inspired by one of Sonic's prototype designs, that being a rabbit, who could pick up and throw objects, and as such, this character would have been called Tangle the Hare, but the idea was dropped. The staff would then go on to further brainstorm what animal this character should be, and what trademark ability they should have. They eventually decided on a ring-tailed lemur who would use their tail as a versatile weapon. Then finally, she would be given Tangle as a now appropriate name, which may be a reference to the fact that she likes to, quote unquote, tangle with bad guys. Really hoping that's not what I think it is. Afterwards, Tyson Hess would go on and bring this character to life, and thus, she is born. And her introduction in this issue was handled perfectly, as she is shown to effortlessly hold her own against the Badniks, has no problem teaming up with Sonic and eventually Blaze to deal with the rest of them, and has many cool and adorable factors. I mentioned earlier how I loved the way the characters were drawn, but when it comes to the sillier ones, she's probably the most hilarious one out of all of them, like in this panel where she catapults Sonic and Blaze high up towards the giant buzz bomber. I also like how she's similar to Sonic in that she has a carefree spirit, a fearless superhero, and is willing to fight her enemies in order to keep everyone and everything safe. She's also one of those characters who is very comic relief, as she's often easily excitable, extroverted, and very joyful, as seen when she was thoroughly surprised at Blaze's presence and her moves. Of course, due to this being a 20-page story, her past and history isn't mentioned often, especially how she stated a few times that she lives in this village. Thankfully, as the series progresses, we do eventually get to learn more about her history, as she has her own miniseries I will get to reviewing in the near future. Case in point, Tangle is one of my favorite characters in this comic, and she is a great addition to IDW Sonic's cast of characters, and she will always bring me joy each time she appears. Also, fun fact, in Sonic Frontiers, at some point during Kronos Island, Sonic will actually mention Tangle, indicating that there may possibly be a main series version of her.
I bet Tangle would love climbing around these ruins.
Next highlight in the issue is another one of my favorite characters, Blaze the Cat. I'm pretty sure everyone and their mother can all agree that Blaze is the coolest female Sonic character ever, and the fact that she shows up literally 4 issues in makes this issue one of my personal favorites to read. I remember seeing her for the very first time when I bought and read Sonic Universe issue 1 and got to play Sonic Rush back in 2011, and I always thought she was a very compelling and super cool character. Out of all the characters in the franchise, Blaze seems to have the most consistent personality in all of her appearances, compared to the others who would either become a joke or be flanderized for inconsequential reasons due to the apparent incompetence of its writers at the time of the 2010s era. It is a shame, however, that she has been a lot irrelevant in the recent games of said era, as in Sonic Colors DS, while I did like the Sonic Rush Adventure callbacks and her interactions with Silver, she's mainly just a side character who only gives out missions. In Sonic Generations, she was reduced to being a side character, as literally all she does is give tips. And in Sonic Forces, oh yeah, she makes no appearance in that game. Not even mentioned either. Now, I haven't played Team Sonic Racing in a really long time, but from what I remember, her characterization in that was actually pretty decent, and this was probably just to show that her character wasn't ruined like anybody else's. I recommend checking out this video from the PJ show, as he explains that better than I do. So anyways, where does that leave IDW Blaze? Well, she's pretty much the same as what you'd expect. She's still calm and collected, she still takes what she does seriously, and she is still more independent, smart, and responsible. The best thing about this incarnation of Blaze is that, just like in the Sonic Rush titles, she comes from another dimension and not from the future. Thank God! I was not a fan of the fact that Sonic 06 turned her into a completely different character and completely retconned her origin story. That is not the case for IDW, and this is yet another good move by Ian Flynn. And yes, I do know that the Archie comics did that as well, so that series gets a massive respect for that too. And of course, she was definitely the best part of this issue. The way she enters the scene in this panel was greatly choreographed, her uses of the pyrokinesis is always awesome to witness, and her expressions were well drawn as well. I think my favorite one will be in this panel where she seemingly has a scared expression on her face for some reason, which still gets a laugh out of me. Is she trying to tell us she has a fear of heights or something? I don't really blame her if that's the case. Still, I'm utterly very shocked, but also very happy that they brought her into the comic only 4 issues in, and boy, they did not disappoint, and it's yet another reason as to what made IDW Sonic so great. And thankfully, we will be getting more Blaze moments later in the comics run. Always enjoyed to see her get some love. And I guess the last highlight for this issue is that I love the reference to that one Sonic Generations mission, as there are giant-sized motobugs and a giant-sized buzz bomber. That mission from that game is one of my favorites, and to see this concept be brought into this comic is incredibly brilliant, and it was so well executed. So for this issue, I am giving it a resounding 10 out of 10. It had an amazing story, good dynamics between the characters, the solid introduction to Tangle, the art style is so fluidly well drawn in most panels, and the references are all great and accounted for. Now let's move on to these variant covers. Like issues 2 and 3, there are only 3 variant covers, so this chapter will once again be short. First off, we have cover B, which displays Sonic, Tangle, and Blaze in Spiral High Village, proving this represents the story. This one's my personal favorite, and also one of my all-time favorite covers for the series, as not only are the characters beautifully well drawn, but the environment around them has slick detail as well. As such, this was drawn by Evan Stanley, and the coloring was handled by Matt Herms, easily one of IDW Sonic's best covers to date. Next is the RI-A cover. Similar to the previous one, this also chronicles the events of this issue's story, as the heroes are shown to have destroyed the giant buzz bomber. I love this cover for 3 reasons: Tangle being in the front and center, Blaze's anxious expression, and Sonic just being Sonic. I can literally hear him going, "Woo! Feeling good!" Of course, this is another one drawn by Nathalie Fordrine. I still cannot stress how amazing her artwork is. And lastly, we have the RI-B cover. Now, this cover has nothing to do with the issue itself, and it seems more like a promotional material poster than a cover. Not sure why they decided to put this as a variant cover, but hey, it is what it is. And if it wasn't obvious by this art style, it was all drawn by Tyson Hess. If I'm being honest, it kinda looks like Sonic and his friends are in their Sonic Mania Adventures designs, but are depicted in their modern looks. Kinda reminds me of that one game that mixes in both of Sonic's classic and modern designs respectively. Either way though, still fantastic artwork, but I kinda wish it wasn't used as a variant cover, as it can be misleading to newer readers. Alright, I was debating if I should include this in the video, but I felt it was necessary to do so anyway. So this appears to be an unfinished cover for this issue, as this was strangely not included in the graphic novel. I kinda wish they didn't scrap it because I think it looks really good, and it represents Tangle's introduction to the series too. I also like how she's grabbing onto the logo and hanging off of it with her tail, almost as if it may be a fourth wall breaking moment. And I can definitely tell Evan Stanley drew this as well. That's all I've got to say on it. And that's all the variant covers this issue has to offer. Cover B is probably the one that stands out to me the most, and it pretty much rivals some of the first issue's variant covers in terms of being one of the best covers the comic has given us so far, but the other ones are fantastic as well. So that's the end of my IDW Sonic issue 4 review. It continues to show what made IDW Sonic so great, and I'll say this right now, this issue is one of my personal favorite Sonic issues of all time, and I will never get tired of reading it for all the reasons I mentioned throughout this review. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this whole review. Next time we'll be taking a look at issue 5, where it starts off the next saga of the series, The Fates of Dr. Eggman. Thank you all for watching, I'm Bronson75, and I hope you enjoyed the review.